Hey Calvary Church, welcome to the after show. This is the message behind the message, and this is the moment where we kind of discover and go a little bit deeper to this past weekend's message. We're going through this series called Hope for Your Home right now, and so we're going to be digging a little bit deeper and looking at what the message was this past weekend. My name's Michael Escamilla. I'm one of the pastors on staff here, and I just want to remind you, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that. Like, share, add us. We want to continue to connect with you and to send you relevant content each and every week. And I have the awesome privilege, we're doing something a little bit different today. We have asked some incredible parents who are wise and brilliant and faultless in all of their ways.
Bit of a stretch.
I am here with Darryl and Nina Knox, who are a part of our church family, and also Perlenea Newton. These are some great voices, and we've invited them to just share a little bit of their perspective on Hope for Your Home and the involvement of Christian education and keeping Christ at the center of our home. And we'll start with you two. Can you just give us a little bit of context of your family dynamic and some of your background and the legacy that you guys are bringing into the conversation?
We've been married 27 years. We have three almost adult kids. One is 23, in fact, on staff here, and a 23-year-old son, a 21-year-old daughter, and a 19-year-old daughter. So we're almost empty nesters.
Yes.
All three of them were in Christian school, in fact, right here in Calvary, from kindergarten all the way through 8th and preschool as well.
Wow.
And two of them actually went to Christian high school. One graduated from Christian high school. So, you know, I've seen the benefit that it's been to our children, the foundation that it's given. Even when life got a little bit hard and started to tug at them, because you know how growing up can be.
Yes.
But it has definitely been very valuable to our children.
And you were a teacher.
Yes, I taught at Calvary for a decade or 11 years. I can't remember which, but it was a blessing. I actually missed it when I left. I missed the kids. I love the kids. And the blessing is I still get to see a lot of those young adults now,
Right.
Coming into adulthood, getting married, and having their own children right here. So it continues.
You had
on.
Abby, my oldest.
I did. Yes, I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she loved having you,
Oh,
I think,
my
until the
goodness.
homework.
Well, you know,
That's
it's cool.
right.
But we still love each other,
Yes,
you know.
absolutely.
And we do get past the homework stage and the stage where I have to be so strict, you know.
Yes.
Now I can just love them
Yes.
and lead them in a different way. But being a teacher is always something that's been a gift, and God has blessed me with that. And there's no better gift in my world
Right.
than guiding these kids and leading them to Christ.
Yes.
That's the utmost. Science is a passion, but Christ is the ultimate passion.
That's right.
And so, yeah.
And Perlenea, can you share a little bit of your story also with us?
Yeah, so grew up in the church, came from a family that always went to church on Sunday, so you know, that was very important for me. Got married and had one child. I have one daughter. She is now grown. But during that time when she was a teenager, I went through a divorce.
Okay.
So things were all the constants in our life were gone, right? So many unknowns during that time, but I quickly realized the value of Christian education and being grounded and having boundaries, right? So she, similar to the Knox's children, she went through Calvary Christian School and then to a Christian high school. So, you know, so many benefits in that that we've reaped, you know, during that time and continue to reap. I think it, when you have all the constants in your life just kind of pulled out, and all of a sudden there's nothing but a bunch of unknowns, having that godly confidence in who you are, who you were created to be, is just so powerful, right? And you know, I think learning should draw you closer to God, right? not away from God. And Pastor Sean's message, I just thought, brought back so many memories, and just the many different Christian educators that have, that have been in my daughter's, in front of her, right? Yeah. Seeing those people not being able to change maybe circumstances, right? But having those people you could look at, right? Yes. And of course, our Calvary home, I think, was just so powerful. And I've seen her in certain situations, dynamics where she's very confident in what she believes now, right? And even speaking truth into my life, right?
Oh yeah.
So just really powerful, and having that structure and boundaries at home, staying in God's Word every day, right? And just having regular times of fasting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
No, that's great. And I've had the privilege, so we have 3 kids, and Abby's our oldest, and she went through Christian education all the way through from preschool, like you were saying, to high school even. So when we moved to Texas, there was a school there that went to high school, and so she was a part of that. Malachi's the same. Right now he's going to Plainfield North, so he's at that high school, and then Lily, our youngest, she's attending here. So a lot of that was a little bit of my, not concern, but just, okay, what's this going to look like with Malachi going into the public school system? And you guys know this. Again, you can keep your kids in the Christian bubble, and sometimes that could be a negative.
Yes.
And because I always have wanted my kids to believe in the Bible and in their relationship with God, not just because I didn't want it just to be mom and dad's faith. I wanted our kids to own that and to have a biblical worldview of their own. And of course, I want to guide them into the right direction, but I want them to wrestle with their questions and not just say, hey, spoon feeding them to where, oh, this is what you have to believe, or this is what you have to follow, to be on my good side. I've just tried to continue to let my kids wrestle with that, because I want them to have a faith of their own, not just of mom and dad's faith. And so, guys, for you, how did you balance that, keeping Christ, again, going back to that term, having a Christ-centered home, not just at school, but also practicing? What were some of those, maybe some practical things that you guys would practice as a family in your home?
Well, for us, I can answer that. There were always things that we read that were biblically based. So there was always prayer. You never miss prayer. My daughter called me the other day, and she actually was mocking me in a way. And she goes, I know, I just need to pray first. And I said, absolutely. So we've always had prayer in our home, and scripture memorization was a part of that as well. Devotion. So,
and dinner.
And we do dinner devotions, as you say, and Christian music. Oh my goodness, there's
Veggie Tales,
things
like that. Yeah.
So we, everything we tried to do in our home was definitely had a biblical foundation to it. And the kids will joke, "Oh, Mom wouldn't even let us watch Looney Tunes." Well, it wasn't
Looney Tunes, but we were we guarded their hearts.
Yes, for sure.
A lot, know. And in terms of, and that's why I kind of joked, earlier. I said, oh, they said, you guys are just crazy. You're too strict. But now they'll come back and they'll relate to other kids, their peers, and they'll be frustrated and they'll go, hey man, they just don't have home training. And I kind of chuckle, I don't want to go, see, I told you so, but I just know. I said, okay, that struggle that we went through, kind of battling them, that push and pull, I knew was worth it. I wonder just one thing you said. You said your son's going to Plainfield North.
Yes.
My son spent his freshman year after going through Calvary at a Christian high school, and he had come to us and said, well, I want to go to public school, and I remember thinking, oh no, out of the bubble, and he said, hey, I've got a foundation, I'm good, and what do you say to that? And I knew where that foundation, and my son, is not somebody that quotes scripture or anything like that, but he definitely knows who he is. the result was he got involved. He was an athlete. He got involved with, a Christian athlete organization.
Yep.
He sought out good friends, not friends that were going to pull him in the wrong direction. So it restored, it reminded me, God is everywhere. And I think Nina talked about, we were concerned, and I remember praying about it, and God said, well, wait a minute, isn't God at Plainfield North too?
Right,
say that.
exactly.
He is, right?
Yeah.
So we said, okay. And I remember the first day he came back and said, hey, somebody offered me drugs the first day of school.
Wow.
No issue. He just said, but just so you know, Dad,
Right.
I took it, not just. No, he said, no, but just he knew his foundation.
Right. Yes.
And we knew that gave me the confidence really for the other two that, hey, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Even if they're not showing it right now,
Right.
you'll come back to it. And then I had to remember my own self and
Right.
my own foundation.
Right.
And it wasn't Christian school, but it was a Christian environment, how I kind of got off track.
Yes.
But that foundation brought me back. The Bible says, teach up a child in the way he should go.
Exactly.
And won't depart from it. And that's so true. So, Christian education just adds to that,
Perlenea, you were mentioning about the legacy. Can you just share that a little bit?
Yeah, I feel like the legacy of our Christian educators is something that they give every day, right? And there was so many different times throughout my daughter's education that that they were there speaking truth over her, over a situation, and just really powerful just to be able to walk alongside these men and women in Christian education and them, displaying what it's like, right? To be an adult and deal with different things in the world and put it in a lens, a God lens, right? So filtering it through our godly wisdom. And I just think that that's a legacy that is so powerful and that just is spills over in many areas.
Yeah.
So very grateful for that.
And I think, and you guys know this, and this is in public school or private school, Christian school, teachers are an example.
Yeah.
And that example that they're setting, I love that fact. You were an example for our kids, for sure. And I know that's a little bit of a weight, but it's so true, and it's been so much fun. Our youngest daughter, Lily, she's growing out of this a little bit, but she wanted a whiteboard in her bedroom because she saw teachers like you and other teachers who have influenced her, and so she would pretend that she's teaching a class in her bedroom. And that was just part of her dynamic, that she saw these godly women who she looked up to and wanted to be like. And so that was so much fun. That's been so much fun for us as parents, just to see those godly men and women in our kids' life. And again, going back to the legacy of the example that they're leaving to our kids and investing and depositing into our children. And it's just reinforcing things that they're being shared with at home. And Nina, you had a quote earlier. Can you share that with us from Pastor Sean's message that you were talking about a little bit earlier here?
I wrote it down because, brilliant people take notes.
That's right.
Anyway, the quote that he said, raising generations in the absence of God has consequences. And I wrote that down because it struck me. And he went on to talk about when the prayer was removed from the schools, and when the Bible was taken out of schools, where the schools started to morally deteriorate and decline. Yeah. And one of the things that disturbs me so much when I was teaching was, and I know kids from both sides, whether I knew kids in the school and I knew kids out of school that weren't going to our school, just where the world is taking them. It's just not a pretty place. And even some of our own children that I often say to God, what happened? Sometimes we lose them, sometimes they go astray, sometimes they're the prodigal. And it just breaks my heart sometimes, but I know in a Christian education, like you talked about, teachers are praying over these students.
Right.
I mean, I pray. I even still pray for some of my students that I've had. Teachers are praying. They're the example, and I see the difference of having a Christian school. And there are Christian teachers in public schools,
Right,
because
exactly.
he mentioned that.
Yes.
And they have a major job to do, because I feel like they're on territory that's not of God, right? And here we are, we have a Christian school and we have this, but even though we have Christian teachers in those public schools, they have a greater work to do. And we have Christian schools. It's so important that we recognize and realize, too. I guess I've lost my train of thought, because I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we really, really need to wake up and get our kids on the right foundation, even if we have to sacrifice to do it. And if we're not sacrificing in the way, if we can't financially afford to do it, then we've got to do it with our own time in our own homes and give our kids the biblical foundation that they need. So that they won't, we got to keep them, we got to not let them just go.
Right, and if I could just speak to that, if you don't mind. Just so much of what you just said, Nina, resonates with me. You know, during that time that I mentioned earlier, there was lots of sacrifices to keep my daughter in Christian education. Certainly not an easy task, and I'm definitely glad that's behind me. But every sacrifice, if you will, was well spent. And I think when I hear you talk about, you know, our public schools, right, and our versus our Christian schools, we have, you know, whether we're a believer in Jesus Christ or you're a non-believer in the world, we're designed in His image, right? And so I think that what is so frustrating and confusing for kids, especially at a time, you know, at critical times when they're developing their emotions and their confidence, right, is getting truth, right? And not being taught opposite of how they're designed, right? And I think then that, you know, that creates so much confusion for kids today if they don't have that grounding in their home or being reinforced in a Christian environment. So that just really resonated with me, because whether we believe in God or not, that's how we're designed. And if we're being taught something opposite, which unfortunately kids are, I think that leads to a lot of frustration and confusion. So I just, that just really spoke to me, Nina.
And God's not a God of confusion.
No.
Or chaos.
No. Yeah.
Darryl, I want to go back to something we were discussing a little bit before we started today. Just, again, that legacy piece and some of your history, your family history, and then what you were wanting to see passed on to your kids and even to your son.
Pastor Sean talked about, I think it was his father's father, had kind of had a very tough upbringing or how he was being raised, and I'm a child of divorce, and so that was also true of my father's father, and I knew a lot of the things that led to it. You know, my mom's side of the family was more of the Christian faith, and I grew up with that. My father's was not, and I just remember when I got married, I said, you know, it stops here. And I was determined going in that I was going to do what was necessary. It wasn't going to be infidelity or a one-sided situation where, you know, my wife does this and I do that. We were going to be a team. So right from the very beginning, you know, the decision was made for me. In fact, my wife and I, we made a contract, you know, that said we will not get divorced. We actually wrote that out, framed it, and but I knew that, you know, it had to be intentional, right? But at the end of the day, I'll be honest. I thought about it. Well, this is what I was going to do. You know, this is what I'm going to do, right? You know, I'm tough. But at the end of the day, I know that this 27 years of marriage, the cord that binds us is Christ. So having Christ at the center of our marriage was the big difference maker. between the two earlier generations. Because, no matter where we were in our journey, whether we were very close or, kind of having a tough time, it was always God that brought us back together. And what I knew the Bible said about divorce. So that resonated with me when he, physically said, and I remember thinking that was me 20-something years ago. And, here we are, so.
And I'm just remembering, part of my story has been, and my parents did an incredible job at representing Christ, and as parents, as a couple, as husband and wife, as a father, as a mother. But in high school, it was my friendships, my peers, and we've probably all heard those stories where the friends really started to lead me away from my family and from a relationship with Christ. And so, Nina, when you were getting emotional a second, I was too, because I was the prodigal, for sure, in high school and early in my college years. Just did a 180 and said, I don't want to have anything to do with the church, don't want to have anything to do with God. And my mom and dad had moments of, where did we fail as parents? And it wasn't on them, it was again on me. And all they could really do was hold on and pray. And just asking God, would you please? It was really my brother, both of us, we decided, hey, we're not gonna do this anymore, as far as following a relationship with Christ. But it was the prayers of my mom and dad ultimately, and when I finally hit the bottom, and there was nowhere else to look except up. And I know none of us as parents want that for our kids. We don't, but it was sitting in the back of a police car, sitting in front of a jury, like it was those moments that really the lights came on, and just saying, okay, Michael, what are you doing with your life? Like, this isn't where you thought these choices and decisions were going to take you to. And where are your friends now? Like the people who were with you in those moments, now it's you and your lawyer and the judge, and they're not around. And so it was just that awakening. And it wasn't like I fell on my knees in the courtroom and recommitted my life to Christ, but there was a light that went on, and then the Bible that was invested in me, the example and the prayers that I heard my mom and dad pray over me and my brother, started coming back, and just that drawing back once again to say, okay, Lord, I surrender. And I'm at the end of my, like the prodigal, I came to my senses, and I'm sitting here in the pigsty, and I'm ready to come back. And that truth that was invested in over the years, those seeds that were planted finally begin to come back and begin to lead me in a different direction. And so that's just part of my story. And I wish that wasn't part of my story, but that was part of my story, to where I had to come face to face with some hard decisions that I had made, self-inflicted consequences of things and decisions that I had made. And so with that being said, guys, I would just love to hear from you, maybe for some parents who are struggling in those moments. What are some advice or some nuggets that you would share with those parents who maybe are kind of struggling with that with their kids at this moment, and they've tried to keep Christ as the center, but it feels like their kids are going off in a different direction?
Pray. And I know that sounds cliche-ish, and that's but I mean, that is it. That's where you begin. I was actually talking to a pastor today, and his son is now a part of a church and a part of the prayer ministry. And someone had come up for prayer, and the woman had asked, this pastor's son, who's his husband and wife are on the prayer team. She said, my daughter's fallen away, and I don't know what to say to her. Now this husband and wife, they don't have kids. He said, I don't know what to say, because I don't have kids. I haven't grown up. But I can tell you how my parents treated me when I had fallen off. They loved me, they prayed for me, and they reminded me where I came from. So you can't necessarily be judgmental, but you have to give them the truth. But you do have to love them, you have to pray and continue to set an example. That resonated with me, that this kid was smart enough to say, hey, I really don't know, I don't have kids, but he was able to relate how his parents treated him when he was, when the wheels were starting to come off. So I would say that, love them, pray for them, still tell them the truth, tell them in love, and just have faith that God, God is in control, and that they're gonna come back. It may not be tomorrow, it may be a few months, it may even be a few years, but just know that God is faithful.
Yeah, I agree, right? So, well said. Prayer. I think, determined trust, right? Trusting in God and making that decision I'm going to trust God to take care of this, right? Because no one knows a parent's heart better than a parent, right? And I think that can, that can be a deep wound for any parent, right? Sure. So I just, in times like that, and I've had, different family members that weren't following Jesus, that, it's that constant prayer, it's that devotion every night, it's that I'm not giving up. I'm thanking Jesus for answered prayer that I'm not seeing yet, right? And, and I've seen that turn around in many cases. It maybe not as quickly as I would have liked to see, but God is more faithful than we are faithful. And I think prayer is just key. Also, I see the benefits in fasting over certain situations, right? Me and my daughter have done that in different areas and have seen breakthrough. So speaking love over them and truth over them, I think those are just really key things that speak to those areas.
And I love that Jesus even said that, hey, some things only happen by prayer and fasting. And there are some certain things that, for sure, that those spiritual disciplines, those spiritual practices, that the Lord even says, hey, that's where you need to go sometimes, for sure.
Absolutely.
Is that place of dependence and trust in the Lord, for sure.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Lots of them, actually. As we sit here, I always think practically, how do you practically show your children that you love them? You spend a great deal of time with them. And, people say quality time. I say quantity. Give them all the time you have, all the time that you can give to them. Be where they are, go where they want to go, see what they're doing, hang out with their friends, have their friends to your house.
Right.
Don't let them go, ever. Even when they go, don't let them go. If they hurt you, forgive them right away. Keep loving them. I think I think we have to be authentic Christians. And one of the things that Jesus did was he forgave.
Yes.
And your kids can hurt you. And they can say things that are hurtful. They can do things that are hurt. They can go and they can be that proud. And you're like, I raised them. I want all my money back.
Yes.
I put them in a Christian school. And you feel like, oh no, I failed. But you still have to just be the Christ-like center in their life. Always say the light is on for you. This is not, but the light is on. You can come home, you call me, I am going to be there. I tell any one of your kids, if you need me, I will be there. I don't care what you've done, what has happened, because that's how Jesus is with us. He is always there for us. So I'm one of those parents, I tell my kids, I will be there. I don't care what you're doing, what you've done, we will come get you. And never let them feel like you're going to fail them, even when they have made mistakes or done wrong or whatever. Be there for those kids. Prayer, absolutely. Pray with them, absolutely. Pray over them. Anoint them with oil, slather them all up. Whatever you have to do.
Get the Crisco.
That's right. just take care.
Crisco.
And just be there. Be there.
Right.
Be there for them, their friends, the whole 9 yards. Open your door and let them be there.
That's good.
I'll add one thing. This is something I heard in church years ago. Rules without relationship lead to rebellion. And it sounds like you've heard that before.
Yes.
And that just makes some, people don't care, and people don't care what you know until they know you care. Exactly. And that's the same thing. The kids are like, okay, well, it's all these rules, but, if it's just kind of seagull management, you drop in that means
Right.
nothing.
But you have to be
have
authentic
that,
and
you have
live
to
by
be
your
authentic.
rules. Yeah.
For sure,
Yeah.
right? You can't
Yes.
do as I say and undo as I do. But if you do have that, there's nothing more valuable than the time that's spent, you know. And if they want to talk, because they never want to talk when you want to talk. They want to talk when they want to talk.
That's
but just
right.
be ready to talk.
And it's usually when you're ready to go to
It's
sleep.
ready to go to bed, or like I
Exactly.
just started this project. Okay, but you're just you know, give them that time. But what's important about that is you are laying seeds for what they're going to do when they have kids. And hopefully, you know, they'll do that. So they don't have to go, it stops here. It
Right.
continues here.
Exactly, the
And this is
legacy.
what- The
Back to
legacy.
the legacy.
Yeah.
That's so
Passing that
well
on.
said. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's a great place to stop. But just that, again, the verse that we're all familiar with, if we've been around church for a while, where Joshua says, hey, as for me and my house,
We will
we're going to serve the Lord.
Amen.
And the generations of that, the blessing of God, and I know we sing that song, but to 1,000 generations, just it continues to go as we've sown those seeds, Darryl, and we're seeing the fruit come. And we might not see it come in our lifetime, but for generations to come, the blessing of God's blessing on our children and our children's children as it continues to go. Hey, I want to say thank you to each of you. Thank you so much for taking
Absolutely.
time
for
out.
having us.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, I love you guys.
Thank
I
you.
love that we get to have this conversation together, and I'm so appreciative of the wisdom that you guys bring, some of the practicalities, and just sharing from a parent's heart and a parent's perspective on how we keep Christ in the center of our home. So I appreciate that for you guys taking time
Thank
today.
you.
Hey,
Thank
and
you.
again, just want to remind you, if you're joining us, please subscribe, please like, please share. We want to continue to bring this content to you every week, and we want as many people as we can. We want this to be a blessing to them and bringing hope for their homes. So we will see you guys next time. God bless you.